Okay, I'm doing a quick little update video here to the boundaries code because I found a little bit of a better way to do boundaries, and so I wanted to just show you guys how I currently do it. You can see I also have my directional change built in here. So the way I did boundaries before was a color sensing boundary, and I'm actually going to change that to a sprite sensing boundary. So I want you guys to go down here to choose a sprite, and we're going to create a level design sprite separate from our backdrop. So go up to Paint. We're going to click on the Paint to create our own custom drawn sprite. We're going to make sure it says Convert to Bitmap here, which means we're working in vector. I want you to set your fill as empty, your outline to black, and your stroke width to about 15. And we're going to draw just two rectangles in our sprite. So we're going to draw from the top corner down to the bottom corner, and then one that's kind of in the middle here. I'm going to click on this move tool so I can move this thing around. I'm going to drop it right there in the middle. You can see on my actual game screen, it's not lined up like this. That's easy enough. We just click and drag it, and now everything should line up appropriately. We now have black outline and a black box around Scratch. Remember, if you want to change things in here, you can just edit them by clicking on these little anchor points. But I'm going to click and just move this right into the center. You can also use the line tool to start adding some lines in. If you hold down Shift when you click, it actually makes the line straight. So you could add, for instance, in, we're going to click this, move here, just a little bit more complexity. So when you start designing your maze, this might be where you kind of start with your basic layout, and then you'll add your own textures and tiles in later. But this is all I want you to do as far as drawing goes. But I do want you to go to the sprite's name, and we're going to name it Level, because this is our level design. And click on Costume 1 here, and let's change Costume 1 to Level 1, because this will actually be how we create multiple levels by using multiple costumes within our level sprite. Hit Return, Level 1, Return, to make sure it's named that. This way, Scratch is going to be interacting with the sprite, and all of its costumes will actually interact with it as if it's just interacting with the sort of the main parent sprite of the costumes. So let's click back on Scratch, and let's get him working. Not click off costumes, we're going to move to code, and we're going to take a look at his movement code right now. Now the important thing when Scratch is moving, so he currently can move through the level. It has no effect on him because we haven't written anything in there. We're going to keep him in this box. Now, we have if statements right now, forever checked if statements, so it's looking to see if the right arrow is pressed and it's changing our x coordinate by 10, so taking our current x coordinate and adding 10 to it. We basically want to create an if statement within this if statement that it checks as well while this one is true. So it can only be activated when the main parent if statement is activated. We're going to go to Control. We're going to grab an if statement right here. I'm going to drag it right underneath and inside our current right arrow pressed if statement. And we're basically going to have this little if statement check. If this one's true, it's also going to check if we're touching the level sprite. So we're going to go to Sensing, and we're going to go Touching. We're going to drop down right here to Level. So if touching level, we are basically going to have a little behavior activate. So right now, if we're right arrow is pressed, we're changing x by 10. But if we're also touching the level, we want to not move through. So we want to basically say, okay, if we're touching level, what do we do to our movement? Well, what we want to do is we actually want to cancel out our movement, because what's going to happen is Scratch is going to be moving by x by 10, by 10, by 10, by 10, and then, oh, he's touching, so he's going to sense that he's touching while we're pressing the right arrow, and we basically want him to cancel the last x by 10 movement, right? We want to jump in there and then jump back to that position, and because the code runs fast enough, it will look like he's standing still, even though he's actually jumping inside and then moving back. So we're going to go to Motion, Change X by, we're going to drop a Change X by, and we're going to drop it in so that it cancels out to 0. So 0 movement on the X would be 10 here, negative 10 here equals 0. So let's give that a try. Click on the flag to update the code. He now no longer goes to the wall when we're pressing the right arrow. Still does when we're doing the left. Up, down, still can go through, but the right arrow he can't. So let's put in the statement into all the other places, changing it appropriately. So right click on the if there, duplicate, we're going to drop it into our left arrow box. And because this is negative 10 direction, we're going to change this to cancel that out to 0 to 10. Very, very simple. We're going to right click again, duplicate it, drop it into our up and down, but remember this is a y axis, so we got to get rid of that x axis and change by y. Remember, it's change y by, not set y to. Set is a very different command. So change y by, this is 10, cancel it out to 0, equals negative 10. Perfect. Right click there, duplicate, drop it down, making sure each one is nested inside the movement if statement, and change this one to 10 to cancel out the negative 10 down arrow. Let's give it a try. Test it. Can Scratch get out of the box? No, he cannot. So Scratch is no longer able to get out of the box, which means that we now have boundary sensing working correctly, which is perfect. So there you go. That's how you do a basic boundary sensing using sprite sensing as opposed to color sensing. I like sprite sensing better because then you don't have to worry about the outlines on your level. You can just be like, the sprite cannot be touched, as opposed to this color can't be touched. Then it gives you a little bit more freedom in your level design.